Hello, my name's Alex Patel and I'm from Wyrd Learning. I'm here to talk to you about Wyrd EDUtainment Bytes, which are our short videos around essay writing. So don't make these mistakes with your university essay. Number one, don't rush into reading. So it's a simple mistake. You get hold of your assignment brief and you go straight in there. You get your list of reading, you rush into it, and before you know it, you've got stacks of textbooks, stacks of research articles that you think you have to get into before you start writing. A huge amount of work already. What you actually need to do is prepare. So we talk a bit more about this in our course, Elevate Your Essays, but if this is your first time round, or if you're just checking to see, are you doing these really essential things right? Then the first thing is you need to unpack your assignment brief. We're looking for some key bits of information. The first one is around how much is this assignment worth? So we're looking at, well, it's 100%. So there's no exam or anything like that on this particular module. So we really have to focus on doing well in this assignment. Next, we can look at how long is it, 1,500 words. And then critically, of course, when is the hand-in date? And once you've got your assignment date, you can put that in your calendar and start to work backwards. Work out how long you need to leave at the end for editing and proofreading, how long you'll need for developing a strong, well thought out argument, and therefore how long you have left to get through your reading. And you may find it's the deadline for getting through your reading is a lot sooner than you were originally expecting, because it's so important to leave time for developing your argument and for the final editing, proofreading, and reference checking. So you can see here we've got submission instructions. So nowadays, a lot of universities ask you to submit electronically, and this is where it'll tell you how to do that. But this varies according to university, so we'll move on. Quite often nowadays, assignment briefs will talk about the intended learning outcomes. So what is it you're trying to get or demonstrate in this assessment? Students will develop critical understanding of historical foundations of psychology prior to the 20th century. So we're talking about quite historical work here. Students will develop in-depth knowledge of dominant psychological systems from the 20th century onwards. So then we're looking at more modern ones, but we're looking at which ones are the most important. Now, how should you be thinking about this information? You should be comparing and contrasting. Useful tip there. And additionally, critically evaluating debates within the psychological field. So let's get into the detail of that assignment task. And so you can see that we have an actual essay question right here. How has our progress in understanding the brain changed psychology for better or for worse? And usefully, we've got a bit more information. In your answer, make explicit reference to the concepts discussed in lectures, so useful point there. And you'll often find that your assignments are linked to your lectures. So if you're not given specific things to read, such as the ones that you're given here, then it makes sense to go back to your lectures and see what theories are being discussed there and whether any of those are related to the assignment that you're doing. And another key bit of information is how are you presenting that? And it's quite surprising because departments and markers are very specific. And I think this comes from how people are expected to submit research papers to journals, because those are very, very specific as well. We've got font size, font type, line spacing. So the 1.5 line spacing allows a marker to print it out, or electronically, it just gives them space to annotate a piece of work. You might also find marking criteria. So we're not going to talk about that here, but in our Elevate Your Essays module, we do go into that in a lot more detail. So check that out if you're interested. This is the first challenge for you. Get hold of your next assignment brief and ask these questions. So firstly, let's work out how important this particular essay is. So what's it worth? Think about what the weighting is. You saw for this last one, it was 100% of the module mark. So in that case, it's very important. You might want to think about the number of credits the module itself is worth. Is it a 15 credit module? Is it a 30 credit module? The more credits and the higher the weighting that the essay is worth, the more important it is for you to do well in. And lastly, some components of some modules you have to pass. It's specified that if you don't pass a single assignment, then you fail that module. And if that's the case, you know very clearly that you need to do well, you need to pass it. Next, find out when it's due. And this means you can start planning. You don't have to do an awful lot of planning, but just breaking down your time into how long you're going to spend on editing, on writing, developing the argument, and lastly, how long are you going to spend on reading? And that gives you an idea of where to set your own personal milestones. And lastly, how do you need to present it? It makes it an awful lot easier if you start off with your Word document set up with the right font, the right spacing, etc., right from the beginning. Now, I'm a big fan of memes, so I thought I'd share some of these with you as we go through. The last section for this video is around analysing your essay question. So we glossed over it a bit before, but going back to that question, how has our progress in understanding the brain changed psychology for better or for worse? Now, look for 4 different things. The first one is the instruction. What are you being asked to do? How are you being asked to analyse or think about the topic area? So we've got how and for better or worse. So this is suggesting that you need to evaluate and come up with an explanation. Now, this is an easy one. What's the subject area? What's the topic? So I would say it's probably progress in understanding the brain. Now, it's interesting because the next thing I'm going to ask you to look for is the aspect. So you'll never be asked to cover a topic in its entirety. Firstly, it's far too much information to cover for something like a 1,500 word essay. But secondly, you're not really investigating. You're not coming up with new ideas or analysing anything. You're simply describing where we're at with a bit of background information, really. So what you've been given here is a topic and an aspect of that topic, a bit like a Venn diagram, and it's that crossover we're interested in. So the aspect here is psychology and how it has changed. And it's those 2 things combined that we're looking at. The last thing we look for is there any other information being given? And in this example, no, there isn't. But you saw in the assignment brief itself, there was that little sub-paragraph that told us a bit about background reading and where to get started. So over to you. Challenge number 2, get hold of your essay question and analyse it. So we're looking for the instruction. So what kind of analysis are you being asked to do? What is the topic or the subject? Number 3, what aspect of that topic are you looking at? And number 4, any other information. Are you being asked to work with case studies or a particular theory, for example? Now you can use this to give you an idea of where to start your reading. So as we saw previously, the person who set the assignment may well tell you, start off with these papers, use these theories. Or it might be up to you to go back to your lectures and think about, well, what connects from the material I've been given elsewhere in this module? But don't stop here. In the next video, we're going to be avoiding the big mistake that a lot of students make, which is forgetting about their reader. What's going to help them make sense of it as they're going through, and then leave them with a really impactful conclusion. So they think, wow, that was a really well put together message. I'm going to give that one very high marks. See you in the next video.